Hello, welcome in, guys. Episode 3 of the Batcat Beat here on the KSR YouTube channel. I'm your host, Daniel Hager, the Kentucky Baseball beat writer for Kentucky Sports Radio. I'm joined today by another guest, Jonathan Bruner. He's been beside me all season long in the press box at KPP, writing for the Kentucky Colonel, which is the newspaper at the University of Kentucky. Jonathan, how are you today, man?
I'm doing good, man. Happy to be here. How you doing today, Daniel?
I'm good. I'm ready to get rolling. It was another great weekend for the Batcast. It just keeps going along. Last week I got Derek's thoughts on the season. Just real quick before we jump into the Arkansas season, just kind of gives a few thoughts on how the season has gone, how it's kind of gone over your expectations and such.
Yeah, so coming into the year, I really thought that Kentucky would be better than they were last year. Of course, nothing like this, though. I thought, maybe a couple more games. I really liked this transfer class coming in. So I thought, probably a couple more wins than last season, but not insanely different. But I think everyone's expectations have been blown out of the water with this team. It's just been extremely impressive because it's like every time you wait for them to go like, okay, this is where they kind of get knocked back down to earth. This is where they cool off, It's just like, okay, well, we thought that it with Tennessee and South Carolina, and then they do this against Arkansas. So it's like they just keep proving that they're far from pretenders and that the sky is really the limit with this team. And it's been an extremely impressive and fun team to watch all season long.
Yeah, that's kind of how it went last year. Like they went on this run of, I think last year they won 20 or 21 games in a row. They get to, I think the highest they got was either 8 or 10, and they kind of started to slide. They slid into the back of the top 25. I know they were ranked 22nd, and they went and beat South Carolina at home. They swept them when they were number 3 in the country. And so at the beginning of the season, I was under the impression that I thought last year's team was more talented, but I really think that this team just is so much more complete. Pitching wise, offense wise, there isn't a hole in the offense at all, I don't think. So that showed this weekend at Kentucky Proud Park as Kentucky came back from losing game 1 of the series to beat Arkansas 2-1. Game 1 did not go great for the Cats. They kind of got blitzed 10-3. It was, I believe it was 1-1 when Trey Poozer exited in the 6th. I know he brought 2 guys on, and then Cam O'Brien came in, Jackson Novi came in, and it kind of went all to hell. The rain started pouring, and it was just one of those nasty games. Let's get out of here. Kentucky, they only got 5 hits for the second consecutive game. They got shut out by Carolina and had just 5 hits. What was your kind of panic level after that first game? Because I know I was kind of like, they've lost 5 of their last 7 now. Like, what were you thinking after that?
Yeah, so I kind of had mixed feelings about it because it was so hard to really assess that game because of Hagen Smith. He's so talented. He's so good. Seeing him in person and just kind of the mystique of him, aura, if you will, he just kind of he just lived up to the billing of being one of the best pitchers in the country. And I thought Coach Min Jones put it perfect after the game. He said that he did to us what he's done to everybody else. And I thought that was very fair. I kind of thought they were in trouble once he came back out of the mound with a lead.
Yeah.
Once he came back out with the lead, I was like, uh-oh. When they kind of got him for a run and had the lead and then they tied it back up, I was like, okay, if they could get him out, maybe, score a couple in the late innings and that might do it. It just didn't pan out that way. The bullpen kind of faltered a little bit. So I wasn't too worried about it really just because of Hagen Smith and that. But, I think it made the importance of game 2 that much more important because I really felt like, well, if they kind of have another dud offensively, then it might be time to really start having some conversations of, is it time to panic? And I thought it would have been, but, going into well, I'm sure we'll talk about game 2 in a minute, but that's not quite how it panned out.
Yeah, I was just shocked that I know Hagen Smith shut them down, but even the game before, they scored 15 runs that Saturday game against Carolina. Then you come out, get shut out, just 5 hits. And then Friday just had 5 hits. And, they had 2 runs in the 9th. And it was like pouring down rain. And it was like people were wanting to get out of there. Arkansas didn't want to burn their arms. So, yeah, watching Hagen Smith, the Friday and Saturday games were the only 2 I haven't been able to see in person. So I didn't get to see him pitch, but I did see him on Sunday. And that dude is like built like a linebacker, like how Paul Skeens is built. And I think he had how many strikeouts did he have? Did he have 14?
14. Yeah,
Yeah,
14.
and that was the 9th time this year that he's had double-digit strikeouts in a game. It's just, I mean, I don't even know what else you can do about that. Like, I would
Yeah.
the poor teams that go to the Fayetteville Regional and have to face him in the first game, and 'cause that's like an automatic loss. Like, they're going to be down to
Yeah.
one this season.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. And just kind of, and the thing is, he did that in 6 innings, 14 Ks. And I think he had plenty more to go. They kind of took the lead. They kind of really extended the lead. They had that big inning there where things really unraveled. And then they took him out after the sixth. But I honestly think that if it still remained a close game, I don't think he was going anywhere,
No.
at least until maybe the eighth or the ninth, maybe. But just the way he was going, it would have been his pitch count that got him out of there. Most definitely not his performance.
Yeah. Yeah, so we were worrying about the last 2 games, but they shut it up, came back and even the series, 11-3 win. I mean, they kind of flipped the script on the Hogs. I was not able to see this game, so I'm sure you would know a lot better of everything that happened on Saturday.
Yeah, it was a huge win. It was almost a must win to kind of calm the sails and just kind of that reassurance of, okay, no, they're fine, they're still legit, they're still right in the mix of everything. I thought it was important that after Dominic and the struggles that he had, he gave up the 2-run home run for his offense to come and pick him right back up, throw up a 3 spot. I thought that was huge, not only for him but just the team in general, because like it had kind of oh, they got the first lead in game 2, so it was like, oh no, is it going to spiral again? Is it going to I thought that was kind of a good like deep breath. They're right there. They came and got the lead back. And then they just kind of poured on after that. Dominic kind of settled in some, gave them, I think, 5 1/3 strong, pretty much. Hogan came in and got 2 big strikeouts with runners on after he left the mound. And then they put up 2 more 4 spots in the fourth and the eighth. So I mean, I thought that was very important. And just like you said, they really just flipped the script. And I thought it was important for them to be able to beat Arkansas. That you got to put up runs. You can't get into pitcher duels with Arkansas. You're not going to win. Their arms are just too good. They have stellar arms across the board.
Yeah.
But when you put up a lot of runs on them, it shows that their offense is maybe not up to par with some other teams in the SEC and in the country. And I think it showed in this one. I think that once Kentucky really got out there, I thought Arkansas kind of threw in the towel, threw some lesser arms, and then Kentucky just kind of kept the pedal down and turned that 7-2 lead, which 5 is still striking distance in college baseball. And they put up 4 more, and then Arkansas threw up a lone run in the top of the ninth. That was essentially garbage time, kind of like UK's 2 runs in the bottom of the ninth of game 1. It was just kind of everybody's ready to go, and they just kind of threw up a run there. But I thought it was much needed, and it was much needed performance from Dominic and the offense in general, just to kind of, like I said, kind of take that deep breath and kind of calm down. Of like, okay, they're still here, everything on the line in game 3, and it just kind of played right into Kentucky's favor of what they needed to happen in this game. They could not afford to drop another series, another game, and then I thought you would have maybe see some confidence kind of start to die down just a little bit, but this kind of reignited the confidence right in the game going into game 3.
Yeah, that's what I touched on last week. I was like, I know Arkansas is ranked number 2 in the country, but if there is a team that you would want a struggling Nyman and a struggling Mason Moore to face, it would be Arkansas. Like, you go up and down their lineup, and it's like you would just think, like, how is this team ranked number 2 in the country, and how are they putting up runs? Because I think they had 1 guy hitting over 300 on the season, and then in SEC play 2 guys. And other than that first game, they did not impress me at all. Like, they were just getting mowed down, I thought. That's kind of a segue into game 3. UK comes out, wins at 7-4. They were up 6-0. Arkansas kind of made it a little interesting at the end, especially with our guy Johnny Hummel coming in, loading he was either loaded the bases or put guys on first and second. I think it was guys on first and second because the batter that came up to hit was the game tying run. 4 back-to-back pop-ups in the game, and get a huge series. Mason Moore was really good. That's what he talked about in his post-game presser. It was his best start in a month, and he really needed it. He went 5 innings, just 3 hits given up, 2 earned runs with 6 strikeouts. He had been really uncharacteristically down over his last 2 starts. I know he gave up 9 against Carolina and 5 against Tennessee, I believe. And both of those came in that fifth inning where he kind of seems to collapse. And he almost started to show that on Sunday. He gave up 2 runs, but he came back, neutralized it. I think he forced that big inning double play to get out of that thing. And that's what I talked to him at the game and after the game, and I was like, was that just like some frustration that you let out? Because he let out that big fist pump after getting out of there, and he was like, yeah, like it's just in the last few games. I mean, it's just that inning has eaten after him, and that's where the game will turn on a whim. Bullpen comes in, and there's not really much they can do. Just how impressed were you with Mason's kind of bounce back on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like with Nyman, it was needed. Like the team needed it. It was just needed across the board for those two guys to show up because as anybody may know, you can't win with just one guy.
Mm-hmm.
You get one starter. You can't win a regional, you can't win a super, you can't win a World Series. You got to have at least 2 to 3 stellar stars, and UK has that. They just had not been pitching like the studs that they had shown that they are throughout the whole season. So it was huge that Mason came back and got that performance, got the big double plays, the strikeouts when he needed them. I think Coach Vince Jones used the perfect word. He managed. That's exactly what he did. He got into some trouble, but he worked his way out of it. It was needed. It was so important for not only Mason but Dominic to get those huge bounce back performances. And I was very impressed with him. I think, like you said, it was a good matchup for both of those two guys, just because Arkansas's offense across the board has just not really produced. And so it was a nice kind of landing pad for those two guys, and I thought they took full advantage and really impressed across their 10 and a third innings, only giving up 4 runs. I mean, I don't know how much more you can really complain about that.
Yeah, I was more impressed with Nyman. Like once again, he gives up that early 2-run homer, and you're like, oh boy, like here we go again. After he didn't even reach the second inning in his last 2 starts. So just coming back after that, it helps when your offense helps you out. He kind of got the same thing in the Carolina game where the offense came back out, but he wasn't out there anymore. So, I mean, just really, really, really big weekend for those guys. And we talked about it. It was like if you've got to your 3rd straight starts with your number 1 and number 2 guys, and they're struggling again, it's like now it is really, really time to worry. But a guy we haven't even talked about is Trey Poozer, like how good he has been since he became the Friday night starter. I mean, he exited in the 6th on Friday and just gave up 1 run. And the weeks before that, he gave up just 3 runs to Tennessee. I think he gave up 1 run to Carolina. He is like really emerged as a really reliable arm. We talked about this last week with me and Derek, but I think the best managerial decision that Min just made this season is putting Travis Smith in the bullpen and putting Poozer on Friday nights, because other than the Tennessee game, Smith has been really, really good out of the pen. And then there hasn't even been a bad Poozer start, I don't think, yet.
No, I mean, I've been super impressed with Trey. I didn't really know what to expect when we saw his name in there. And, like you spoke with Travis, Mingione has really talked about the lat, had a little lat hiccup, so to speak, that kind of got him out of that role. But I think it's been a blessing in disguise for the team and for both of those guys. Because, I mean, Trey has really stepped up and he's been really impressive. I mean, it's kind of concerning to think about what could have been if Trey wasn't getting it done when Mason and Dominic weren't.
Yeah.
So, but now that you got all 3 of them back on the same page, it's like now the sky really is the limit with those 3 guys going like that. I mean, because it's crazy because the way the stats have kind of shook out, Trey has gained ground on Mason and Dominic in basically everything, in at least in 1 less SEC start. So, I mean, it's been impressive to see what he's done, and he just keeps delivering over and over and over again. I mean, he dueled with Hagen Smith for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, he was right there neck and neck with him. I mean, he pitched with a lead for a couple innings, and then it was tied, and then then he came out, and that's when it kind of went off the rails with the bullpen. And he did have some runners on. I think he finished with 3 earned runs, maybe.
Yeah, but
something
he only
like that.
Everything in the game. Yeah.
Yeah. So but like you said, he's been super impressive, and it's been kind of the saving grace with Mason and Dominic struggling like they are. It's almost allowed them to do that and it not be that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
If you had, say Travis or Trey in the Friday night role and they're struggling, then you go, okay, well, now you got all 3 of your starters are struggling. at the worst possible time, and that could have been really bad. But I mean, he's been phenomenal. You can't really say enough good things about how he's done in that role, and it's been impressive to watch. And I agree with your statement about Travis. He's pitched straight out of the pen. I think that's kind of I you know I think his stuff plays really well there, and I think he has the ability to just go pedal to the metal and just give it everything he's got, like a sprint. Where
Yeah.
sometimes maybe in his starts he maybe have to hold back a little bit, kind of
Mhm.
save some. Now I think it allows him to go in, and I think his stuff plays so much better when you don't have a lot of time to adjust to it. If you're only
Yeah.
going to face him once, he's a tough at bat because I mean his stuff does play really well. And I think kind of the Tennessee, because in game one he came in and pitched great,
Mhm.
and then it was the first time we've seen him twice in the same series. And then the second time out is when he kind of struggled. So I don't know if maybe he just needs to be once a series, or maybe he just needs to get more used to multiple appearances in a weekend.
Mhm.
But I mean, he's done great things out of the pen, and he's been a huge weapon, especially with some other question marks in the pen of some other guys who maybe not pitching their best right now. He's been huge for them for sure.
Yeah. I mean, he's their hardest throwing guy. Like until Waldschmidt kind of came on, he was their only top 100 draft prospect. And with a guy like him, like I think the formula for his starts is he would start, have 2 or 3 really, really good innings, but then you get around that fourth inning, and that's where you're facing a lineup for the second time, and the control issues would show up. I know he would have like 5 walks a game, and so limiting him into these. I think he's only doing an inning. Like I think there's
Yeah,
only been
most of the time.
where he's gone over an inning. So just kind of pushing that all in there and keeping him strong for like 25 pitches or so has been really, really good to see. And I think that's the best spot for him, like you said. I don't think he'll be back next year. Um, I don't. I was gonna say if he was back, we would have to have this conversation again, especially
Yeah.
with everyone leaving. But um, the importance of winning the series, I thought it was really, really huge because if they would have lost, you would have gotten to this rut of okay, so these guys have lost 3 straight SEC series. They'd be tied right now if they didn't win the last 2 games with Tennessee atop the SEC East. I think Arkansas would still be on top in the SEC, and just the respect that I think everyone kind of gained for UK. I know Kendall Rogers from D1 Baseball talked about it. It's like Sunday's game was a make or break. And it's like, we know Arkansas is good. Do we know Kentucky is good? Because they took the first game against Tennessee, but then they got punked the last 2 games. And then they gave up that lead to Carolina in the first game, held them off in the second game, and then got punked the third game. So it's like, did these guys just get off to a really hot start, like a lucky start, or things going their way? Their schedule wasn't really the toughest, so that was kind of more fuel to the fire for people to be like, these guys are pretenders. Like they'll do the same thing they did last year, which last year they actually did kind of collapse heading down the season just a little bit.
Yeah.
They weren't as consistent as they were at the start of conference play, but this season they are just as consistent. Um, Bouncing back and winning that was just huge. Just kind of what are your thoughts on just the difference of like if they would have lost that last game and winning it, just how they'd be kind of viewed in the national media that if you see that on social media.
Yeah, I mean, even after the Tennessee series, people were going, oh, their easy schedule showing, it's out now. The gimmick is up, and then it added even more fuel to that. Like you said, after the South Carolina series, it was like, oh, time to count them out. Here it goes, and then, I think it was very important. It shows that they're definitely not pretenders. They're right there in the mix with everybody. It should be in every conversation. It should not. You shouldn't be having a conversation about World Series possibilities without mentioning Kentucky in some breath of being right there. But I think it needed to happen in a sense of it's great to say all this, and you can only say don't panic for so long.
Yeah.
You kind of could say it after the Tennessee series, okay, no need to panic, no big deal. You could even say it after South Carolina, like, okay, a little more concerning that they dropped this one, but still no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
If they do it again, there's only so many times you can keep saying it. So
Yeah.
it was important to put some results with the don't panic statements, and they were able to do that with this. And I think kind of it really calmed everything down and put them right back in the discussion that maybe they never should have been out of in the first place. But for the people that did count them out of that discussion, it kind of puts them right back in it. And it was. I think it's important for the team themselves to know that yeah, we have confidence and it's shown. And I think it's kind of they needed to see this too, to know that we are right there with anybody. And because it's easy to say that, but baseball it's results based, as is any sport. You can say anything you want, but if you can't win on the field, it doesn't really matter. It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
So I think it was important for the team to see it, the national media to see it, just everybody all across baseball, because now it puts them right back in the conversation that, in my opinion, they really should have never left. But over their previous two series, there was some cause for concern. I think this slammed the door on all that. And, but it could restart again against Florida, I guess, if they drop that one.
Yeah, and just kind of just the whirlwind of just the differences of if they would have won or lost. Like, they come away with the win, and we'll touch on this real quick. Like, it comes out today that UK is the #1 overall seed in the latest field of 64 projections from Baseball America. I assume they probably would have stayed at 4 or 5 where they've been if they would have dropped it. Maybe fell a little bit, but people were really writing this team off. Like, I know it's mostly like, if you were to check social media, it's mostly Tennessee fans. But
Yeah.
But I mean, that's all it is. Like, it's like that for every single sport. But the demise of this team was written off way too soon. And so everyone's finally like, okay, like, we'll give you your respect. You went out, you won a series over Arkansas, who had lost just one series all season in SEC play. And that's just the difference of coming out in that final game, of being fired up to win it, going out there and getting it done. Just a huge series victory that they'll need to carry over this weekend. We were supposed to have a midweek game at Xavier, but they canceled it due to rain, and it didn't even rain up there. Didn't even storm.
I think more the possibilities of it kind of scared everything away, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I think the extreme weather in like Oklahoma scared them or something, because I was checking the radar all night, and here it was like perfect weather. In Cincinnati, there was nothing. I know there was bad weather in Cincinnati last night, but I don't know if they thought that was going to be the night before or whatever. I wasn't really too upset about them canceling that Xavier game. The one thing that I would have liked to seen was Ben Cleaver start, which was the word on the street, because he'd only pitched 2 innings this year, just allowed 1 hit and 3 strikeouts. I think next year he could be a big piece if either they started him, if he moved to a starter role, because he's very capable of it, or just became one of their go-to relief pitchers. He showed really good stuff in his 2 starts. And I also was talking to Derek Terry about this, and the ball would have flown out of that ballpark in Xavier. Like, it probably would have been like that Louisville game again. Their record wasn't that great. I think they were just 25-23. But if you were to check, their RPI is actually really good. So if UK were to go in there and actually won that game, if they played it, I think that would have wrapped up a top 8 seed. I think they've still pretty much wrapped up a top 8 seed, unless they like get swept in their final 2 series. Yeah. But UK is in good standing. Like, I know we were talking about this before we came on. Like, UK's final 2 series are against Florida and Vanderbilt. I think they're the only SEC team in the top 5 of the standings right now that are still kind of grappling for that top spot, that don't play a ranked team in the last 2 series.
Yeah, I mean,
do you have that?
I think so. I mean,
that's where
A&M plays Ole Miss, so I Ole Miss would be the other one. But a lot of it is going to kind of come down to one, because A&M and Arkansas both play each other, so they'll kind of duel against each other in that regard. Arkansas's got Mississippi State this weekend. They've been playing white hot. So Arkansas doesn't have an easy road, kind of the teams in the mix. Tennessee's got Vanderbilt, Belmont in the midweek, and then South Carolina. So once again, kind of similar with Kentucky, sort of. Not extremely difficult, but also, not a cakewalk either. And then A&M's got 3 against Ole Miss, who's kind of right on the fringe of Hoover. So those will mean a lot to Ole Miss. I mean, A&M's really good though, so I mean, it might not be up to Ole Miss how that series goes. And then they got Arkansas, and then another team in the mix for that 1 overall seed is Clemson as well. They got 3 They got 3 against Wake Forest, a midweek against Coastal Carolina, and then 3 against Boston College. So I mean that I think conference tournaments are gonna play a huge role in this, especially for the SEC teams kind of grappling for that number 1 overall seed. But as far as Kentucky getting an 8 seed, I feel like something would really have to go off the rails for them
Yeah.
to not sure up that 8 seed and get a supers bid as well.
Mhm. And how exciting just is that prospect? Like you see it out in the words of like number 1 overall seed, and you're like, what, the basketball tournament? But no, it's like it's the NCAA baseball tournament where last year LSU and Florida and those types of teams were the top dogs. Like UK hosted a regional, but I never felt like they were on that echelon. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I understand? Like
Oh yeah.
I never felt like they were close to like, and you saw that when they went to LSU and just got drummed in both games.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're in position right now to be the number 1 overall seed, which is crazy. I think that they can wrap up, if they haven't already, the top 8 seed this weekend at Florida.
Yeah.
Florida's been one of the most disappointing teams in college baseball this season, up there with LSU. Which, to be fair, those guys did lose. Both those teams did lose some absolute dudes. Like
Yeah.
Wyatt Langford is no longer there. LSU lost Skeens and Dylan Cruz, but they head to Florida this weekend. Kentucky's got 18 SEC wins. That's already 2 more than they had all of last year. So, and they hosted a regional. So it's like they've wrapped that up. But I'm going to throw some graphics up here, just kind of doing a quick preview of Florida as a team. Really underwhelming, kind of in both aspects of offense
Yeah.
and pitching. 271 batting average is 436 team hits, 324 runs. 10th, 8th, and 12th in the SEC out of 14. They have thrived in home runs, but Caglianone has 27 of those 99, so he's really making up for that in that category. 443 strikeouts as a team. It's third in the SEC, so these guys strike out a lot, and then just it's going to be a bit of a culture shock going from that stellar Arkansas pitching staff to this Florida pitching staff, which has a 6.26 team ERA, which is dead last in the SEC. Opponents are hitting 267 off of them. That's second or third to last in the SEC. 434 hits, 305 runs, also second to last in the SEC. But they do get a lot of strikeouts, 497 strikeouts. What's your kind of quick impression on this Florida team, Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it, underwhelming. They were right there in the mix of, I want to say, I mean, they opened top 5, I think. Yeah. I mean, they opened top 5 in the country and went on a free fall ever since and are still kind of falling. You know, I thought they had a good win against Tennessee last week. I mean, I thought that was a good win. But the numbers don't lie. I mean, none of these numbers really jump off the page at all besides the home runs. But like you said, Caglione's got 27 of them. So it's like, and then, you know, I think that while they do strike out a lot of guys, Kentucky's not a team that strikes out a ton. So I don't really think that's even going to work that well in their favor. I mean, you know, I think that Kentucky's in a good spot to take it minimum 2 out of 3 in this series, unless something really goes awry. And they got a good chance to sweep, you know, kind of quickly looking at those numbers, because there's just not, outside of Caglione, there's just not too many people that just jump off the page like, this guy can really get us.
Yeah.
This guy can, you know, this guy can really be who makes or breaks the series. Florida just doesn't have it outside of Caglione, of course.
Yeah. Like just looking at their pitching probables, like their Friday night guys got a 6.26 ERA. Saturday guys got a 6.54 ERA. And Caglione throws hard, but he's got a 4.39 ERA. It's like their pitching staff has just been so like it's just drugged them down as a whole, and their offense isn't good enough to overcome that. Where in Arkansas is good enough to overcome kind of a not great offense. But the guy that we're all going to be focusing on is Jack Caglianone. Who would you say is better, him or Charlie Condon?
Ooh, that is tough. I would probably give the edge to Jack just because of the pitching. I think that as hitters, they're pretty close to the same. I mean, it's almost like McGuire and Sosa. They're just battling to see who can hit the most homers. They're just hitting one every single game, maybe minus the roids, of course, but never know. Anyways, I think the pitching just maybe puts Caglione over the top just a little bit, but I mean, they're like if Caglianone's right here, Condon's like right here. So
Mhm.
I mean, they're right there with each other. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. What about you? Who would you take?
I, oof. I think I'll have to see. I'll have to wait to see after this series because we talked about it before we came on. Like Condon was totally neutralized when he played at KPP this year,
Yeah.
and we talked about how strong Mingione has been at that, at limiting these guys. Like he did the same thing with Dylan Cruz last year, and I know
Mhm.
guys like Tommy White and guys of that caliber came back to bite them, but Minge has done such a good job at just not letting one guy beat them. I know Condon, I mean, we were talking about it. It has to be the only SEC series this year that he hasn't homered in. And he didn't even like I think he got a hit in the first game. And I cannot even remember like if he did anything. Like he had no effect on the series at all. Which
Yeah.
to be fair, the Georgia offense was completely shut down that series. I think they scored just like 13 runs over the 3-run span.
Maybe.
But yeah, it's gonna be a cannot let Caglianone beat you. He had
No.
how many home runs did he hit in that span, or how many games straight? Was it 11 games straight with a home run, or
Something
10?
it was something like that. It was really high, but I mean, you said it. You could not let him beat you. I mean, that would be just if he comes up in a big spot and those four fingers don't come up from Coach Mingione, then I think that's you're asking for it at that point, and there's a good chance that he's going to come through and empty the bases or whatever situation may be. I mean, because just like you mentioned, kind of Tommy White really got to him last year because they decided to no way Cruz is beating us. I don't
Mhm.
even think Florida has a guy like that who can
No.
even really get to you outside of Caglione. So unless somebody really steps up for Florida, the sole goal has to be to not let Caglione get you in a big spot at all in the whole series.
Yeah, because like I'm just looking at like their batting stats right now, and you've got Caglianone who's batting 412 on the season, but then you've got Ty Evans just batting 324, and then it's a huge dip to just 268, 260. Like their entire lineup is in that 260 to 240 range, kind of like how Arkansas was. And so
Yeah.
this weekend, I'll be looking at seeing if the starters can go out and prove that they are really like, okay, we figured out what was going on. I know Mason said that he talked with Coach Roselle about kind of changing his mechanics, kind of going a bit quicker. He realized he was kind of taking too long. So I really want to see Nyman and Moore, and then Poozer. I want to see them continue to go out and kind of prove themselves that okay, maybe these last two series were maybe flukes. Because even for Nyman, I think there is a good chance that it could just be like either a fluke or he just has not had like the stuff that he's expected. Because coming into that Tennessee game, he had that complete game shutout against Alabama. I think he had 14 and a third consecutive with just one earned run. And so that's what I'd really like to see. I'd like to see Ryan Walshmit get back to because he kind of wasn't great over the Arkansas. Like he was still Ryan Walshmit, but he kind of took a little bit of a step down that he had shown over the last few series. So I want to see him kind of continue to rate because I do want to see him make an All SEC team, and that's what it's looking like. He's really on that track now. We talked about Nick Lopez had an awesome series against Arkansas,
Yeah.
which was really good to see because he had been struggling a bit, which led to him not even playing in that Friday night game, which I'm not sure was probably the best decision by Mingione. I think he had been batting just 3 for his last 24, but still, I don't know if you take out either your first or second best offensive player. In that
Yeah.
case, he really showed it. That he had at least 2 hits in both games. I think he had 3 in the last
Yeah.
one. Yeah, and just continuing to see those guys play really well, come out, win the series. I think they're going to win their last 2 series, honestly, and that puts them in great shape to come out and win this SEC crown. Who'd you say Tennessee plays? Vanderbilt and Carolina. Those are the last.
Yes. Yeah. That's who they got in their last three with Belmont in the middle at a midweek. But I
And
mean,
so if Kentucky can come out and go 4-2 maybe in these last 6 SEC games, could even go 5-1, 6-0. I mean, we could be talking about them wrapping up their second ever SEC regular season crown. Like, just
yeah.
think like before the season, it's like if I were to tell you like this is a team full of transfers that is going to go out there and win the regular season in the best baseball conference in the country, like you'd probably call me crazy, but that's really at the point we're at right now.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. And I mean, looking at this series, I thought Emilian Petrie looked really good this weekend. He had kind of been kind of up and down the whole year, and then kind of struggling throughout the last couple of weeks a little bit. But I thought he looked really good this weekend. His at bats were good. I think Devin Burks continues to slowly kind of start clicking, and I think he's going to be huge in this run. Not only his experience in this stage on the big stage, but I mean just his ability to kind of carry this team. I mean, he's the spark plug. He's their guy. The
Mm.
fans rally around him. Everybody rallies around him. Kind of when he's going, the whole team kind of seems to just follow suit with him. And I think it's going to be important for him to kind of keep it going. I think this series is going to be important to just kind of build, take the next step.
Mhm.
Dominic and Mason, yeah, it was good that they had bounce backs against Arkansas, but you're only as good as your next start.
Yeah.
So I mean, they gotta keep going. Trade's got to keep going. It's just got to be just kind of a keep on keeping on. You're on the right track. You just got to keep going and can't sputter right now. Can't really kind of fall on those, kind of revert back, because then all of a sudden now it's like, okay, well, are Dom and Mason really back, or was the Arkansas the fluke and not necessarily the South Carolina and Tennessee? So I think it's just got to be one where they just kind of keep it moving, keep going. But I mean, to answer the earlier question, no, I would have thought you were absolutely insane if you were telling me that there's a chance that they would be competing for an SEC regular season crown and it actually be well within reach and entirely in the possibilities.
Yeah, and just talking about, I know Minge touched on it on Sunday. Like Ryan Nicholson has been just
Yeah.
raking, and he had nothing to show for it this weekend.
No,
Like he was just hitting hard out and hard out and hard out, and so definitely would like to see some balls fall in for him this weekend. Before we move on, I wanted to acknowledge the story about Emilian Petrie, how his family was able to see him
yeah,
play this time for the first time this weekend from Quebec, Canada. That was a really cool story to hear him talk
absolutely.
about and hear Coach Mingione talk about on Sunday. Him and Grant Smith continue to just blow my mind with their infield defense, like top 5 in the country, if not 2 or 1.
I would
Um,
say at least top three. I mean,
yeah,
I think five is maybe even too much there. Definitely three.
defense like all around. Like Daly has been playing really good at third base, and then you go to the outfield. You've got McCoy and McCarthy and Waldschmidt, and just these, even Pat Herrera, who is not an outfielder, is playing really good right field when he gets some playing time. And that's a guy that I'm going to keep saying is going to end up having a big moment for this team, either in Hoover or in the NCAA tournament. He's going to come in. I'm calling my shot on Pat Herrera. I'm really high on him. He's a guy that is going to just keep having his ear up to Minge. He's going to get called, and he's going to deliver. I'm telling
Well,
you.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, you never know. They're going to need, they can't, to go on a run like they can go on for a College World Series bid. There's going to have to be those moments where some guys like that kind of have that big moment in a Hoover when you have to play day after day after day.
Yeah.
Some guys are going to have a little nagging injuries, little things like that where it's like, okay, well, we're a shoe in for the real tournament. So, let's maybe, okay, Pat, you're in for this
Yeah.
one, things like that. And you may need McCoy to throw, you may need McCoy on the mound and
Yeah.
to get you some innings. So I think he could definitely play a big role and have a big swing or two in this stretch run here as the season winds down.
Yeah. Lastly, before we go on the field of 64, another thing I wanted to say was Devin Burks. We talked about him also
Yeah.
before how we were really all kind of worried about his hamstring because he had looked really slow in the Tennessee series. It looked like he was kind of getting back to things in the Carolina series, but the Arkansas series, like he looked good to go. Like he was beating out infield singles. He was scoring from first on doubles. Just seeing that guy just kind of get back to where he's been. And in the last 2 seasons, like the month of May and the month of June, this dude turns into like Mike Piazza. Like he just
Yeah.
gets like an extra boost of, even when he wasn't the everyday catcher like 2 seasons ago, he still was awesome in the SEC tournament. That's kind of how everyone started to learn who this guy was. And then last year, of course, he won most outstanding player of the Lexington Regional. So I know we've heard people say, he's only at 60 to 70%, but I think he's right where he needs to be for this final stretch of the season.
Yeah, I mean, when you kind of, we were, I think it was on Saturday when he legged out an infield single, and I was like, whoa, like where did that come from? We were used to seeing him, hobbling home on the Tennessee at the Tennessee series when he got sent as the go ahead run there. But seeing, you said it. He just turns into a different dude when the lights get brighter. He just rises to the occasion, and I think it's going to be important that he does the same this season. Because I mean their expectations are beyond a super regional, beyond So to see him kind of really returning to form, you just see his averages keep ticking, 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 ticking. Slow. It's just slowly just climbing, and then I think he's going to be one of those guys that really starts clicking and really finds it, especially now that he's healthy and now that calendars turn to May, and then we'll turn to June soon enough. And so, I think he's going to be one of the catalysts of this run, and he's going to have to be because, kind of like I mentioned before, this team just moves at a different gear when Devin Burks is rolling. Yep. When he's on second, doing the sellies and just his energy, everything he brings to the table, he's a super important piece of this team, and I think he will need to be for this run, no doubt.
For sure, it seems like his batting average has just risen like every single game. And you were talking about it. It's like this dude is at least he's going like 1 for 3 or 2 for 4 every single game. His batting average was at like 216, I believe, like not even long ago. And it's already up like 250. And just this dude is like, I think Mingione said that at some point in the season. It's like this team goes when Devin Burks goes because everything kind of cycles through him. I mean, he's the leader of the infield. He's the leader. He's the captain. I mean, he's Mr. Cat at the Catsby Awards. Before we get out of here, we'll just go back on the field of 64 projections. Baseball America and D1 Baseball put this out today. I'll throw this graphic up on the screen. The number 1 seed in the entire tournament, they'd have Kentucky with Oregon, Indiana, and Nebraska, Omaha. I know D1 Baseball had a little different. I know they had West Virginia in there, who has J.J. Weatherholt, who is another really, really good player. I mean, just looking at it, like the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. Jonathan, what do you think this team needs to do down the season? Because it's a thing. It's all right to have that one by your name with 2 weeks remaining, but what do you think they need to do over their final? Because they do still have the midweek game with Wright State. Like what they need to do over their final 7 games, and then Hoover to actually have a real shot at getting that 1 seed.
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, when it comes to the regular season, just keep stacking wins. I mean, I think that's the basis of where it all starts. Is just kind of keep stacking wins. I don't think they should get too fancy with the midweek game and start switching the lineup a ton. I think it's kind of to the point where what the lineup should be. I think it should be that every game here on out, unless somebody's a little hurt, banged up, something like that. Of course, get them out. No need to risk any injury with so much ahead. But I think they just got to just take care of business, and then I think Hoover is going to be where the number 1 seed is decided. Because I mean, I know Clemson's right there in the mix, and you can't forget about them. But I think with UK, A&M, Tennessee, and Arkansas all right there, kind of jumbled together in the mix, I don't really think that unless one of those teams just really collapses during the rest of the regular season, I think it's going to be on who can perform in Hoover, and it could very well be whoever wins that wins the number 1 seed along with it. I think that's what it should really come down to. So I think conference, especially the SEC tournament, is going to mean more this year than it has in a long time, just because there's so many teams just right there, right in the top 5, right in the mix, kind of fighting for 1 spot. And so I think that could be the kind of determining factor, unless one of these teams like loses out in SEC play or something unexpected happens. I think Hoover is going to be the place where your 1 seed's decided.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the same thing. It's like those are the top 4 teams, and they're going to have the top 4 buys in the tournament, so they're guaranteed at least 2 games, and so which is nice because where UK was, I think they were the 10 or the 8 seed or the 10 seed last year, and they were 1 and done,
something like that.
Yeah, and so that I think if they had a better performance in Hoover, I mean, they could have even jumped up a little further. And like you said, like the top 4 teams are going to be the top 4 buys. So I'm so excited for that. Hoover after that Wednesday through Sunday should be like a bloodbath because these teams are playing for that spot. And then you got to think about like the teams that are just right behind them that are fighting for a regional too. Like that's going to clash with the teams fighting for the top 8 seed. You've got like a South Carolina or an Alabama or even a Georgia who have really kind of come on lately,
Yeah.
who are going to be trying to take out these top 4 teams so that they can host a regional. I know I was watching the D1 baseball. They were talking the other day, and one of the guys has Kentucky as the Omaha dark horse, which they should not be a dark horse. Like
No.
they're a projected #1 overall seed. But another guy had Georgia, who, I mean, Condon is really fueling them, which I was like, I don't know about that. But if they can go through and win a couple games in Hoover, they could be set up. They've got some good wins to go out and get a regional. So yeah, I'm really excited for the SEC tournament. I'm hoping you're able to get to come down. I was there last year. It was an absolute blast, even though they lost the first game. We'll be guaranteed, unless they get swept these last 2 series, we'll be guaranteed at least 2 games this year, which will be nice. But yeah, I mean, gonna go ahead and wrap the show up. Like, just really excited for this last final stretch of the season. You got 3 games at Florida, Wright State, and then your 3-game series against Vanderbilt, which is a bit of a revenge game because Vanderbilt swept UK last year in Nashville. That was kind of when they were struggling a bit. So there's no Enrique Bradfield there anymore. So, and they're struggling a bit. So excited for that. Well, Jonathan, thanks for coming on the show today. Really fun show, man. Before we get out of here, just kind of plug yourself where people can find what you do and your social media and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so as far as Twitter or X, you can find me there on at JB239965, and then all my work is on kykernel.com. You can sort through the baseball tab or just in the regular sports, and you'll find me somewhere on there. Appreciate you as always, Daniel. Look forward to the next time, man. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you guys can find me once again on Kentucky Sports Radio website under the baseball tab or under my tab on Daniel Hager. Or you can head on over to KS Board. We're in there all the time talking in our baseball threads and in our other threads. We got a special offer going on right now on KSR Plus, $1 for 2 months. Use code UK1 to get in all the action. We've got a really good community over there. A lot of guys that are really excited about UK baseball and the ending of the season. We will be back next Wednesday talking about this weekend series at Florida. And is it Wright State game next Tuesday at home?
Yes. Yeah, next Tuesday, and then it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday against Vandy instead of the typical Friday, Saturday, Sunday at KPP.
Yeah. So unless that Wright State game somehow gets canceled, like the odds of it happening are probably a little lower because it seems like all these get canceled with all these big teams like heading down. It's always like, oh, our team's sick or something. So just so they can kind of weasel out of it. But if they do end up playing it, we'll be talking about that in the Florida series next Wednesday. Thanks everybody for watching, and we will see you guys next week.